Are goods shipped from the US to Canada subject to GST, HST? When US businesses ship goods directly to Canadian customers, one of the key questions is who is responsible for GST, HST at the border. Unlike digital services, which are taxed based on customer location, physical goods have specific rules tied to importation, delivery, and the importer of record. Understanding how GST, HST applies in cross-border shipping helps US sellers avoid pricing issues, compliance mistakes, and unexpected customer complaints. Import taxes depend on the importer of record. Whenever goods enter Canada, import tax is assessed. But the party responsible for paying that tax depends on who is listed as the importer of record. This determines whether the US seller needs a GST, HST registration or whether the Canadian customer pays the tax. If the US business is the importer of record, GST, HST becomes payable by the foreign seller at the time of import. If the Canadian customer is the importer of record, the customer pays the tax and the foreign seller may not need to register. Delivery terms influence GST, HST obligations. Incoterms, such as DDP, delivered duty paid, or DAP, delivered at place, play a major role in determining who pays GST, HST. US sellers who offer all-inclusive landed pricing or duty-paid delivery often assume the Canadian buyer is responsible, but DDP terms typically shift responsibility to the seller. As a result, the foreign business may face GST, HST obligations unintentionally. Shipping practices, customs arrangements, and contractual terms all shape how tax applies. Here are the common scenarios that determine GST, HST tax treatment. If the Canadian customer is importer of record, they pay GST, HST at customs. If the US seller is importer of record, the seller pays GST, HST and may need to register. If goods are delivered from Canadian warehouses, the sale becomes a Canadian taxable supply. If the seller uses Amazon FBA Canada, GST, HST registration is required. If fulfillment occurs domestically, GST, HST must be charged on the invoice. These distinctions dictate whether the foreign business must collect tax. DDP shipping often triggers GST, HST. Under DDP arrangements, the seller assumes all import responsibilities, including tax. US businesses offering DDP often discover only later that they were expected to register for GST, HST because they effectively imported goods into Canada for resale. Charging GST, HST without registration is prohibited, and failing to register may lead to unrecoverable taxes. Goods delivered from Canada require GST, HST. Once goods are stored or fulfilled from inside Canada, they are considered to be supplied in Canada. This includes Amazon FBA warehouses, third-party fulfillment centers, Canadian distribution hubs. Selling from Canadian soil always requires GST, HST registration regardless of where the business is incorporated. A practical example, a US home goods seller ships orders from Ohio directly to Canadian buyers. The customers are importer of record, paying GST, HST at the border. The US seller does not collect tax and may not require GST, HST registration. Later, the seller begins using Amazon FBA in Ontario. Once inventory enters the warehouse, the tax status changes. The sale becomes a domestic Canadian supply requiring GST, HST registration. Failing to register at this stage can lead to penalties and tax reassessments. Final thoughts. Goods shipped from the US to Canada may or may not require the seller to charge GST, HST. The determining factor is who acts as importer of record and whether inventory passes through Canada. US sellers must evaluate their logistics model, delivery terms, and warehousing plans to ensure their tax strategy matches Canadian rules. If you'd like more insights delivered in the same straightforward style, you can explore our website. If you require assistance with Canadian tax matters, our team is ready to provide reliable professional support. Please contact us at 416-283-8774 or visit theaccountingandtax.com for more information. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.